everybody, it's Nina. Thanks so much for joining me today for a new tutorial. Today's video features the new Simon Says stamped July 2017 card kit. I'm going to be using the items that are included in the kit to create this really cute inlay die cut background using many of the pattern papers and also the new teeny bikini die. To get started on my card, I took a piece of the white cardstock that's included in the kit and cut it down with a wonky stitched rectangle die, which is from one of Simon's more recent releases. I'm using the teeny bikini die and I'm cutting the bikinis into this paper, and I'm going to be doing this to create a background. I'm not going to be using any of the bikini shapes, but I do need all of the negative pieces, and you'll see why in a minute. So save all of those little extra pieces because you will need them. I'm going to continue die cutting all of these bikinis from this background panel until I have the entire piece covered. What I'm trying to do here is I'm creating a pattern to have the bikinis kind of falling all over the place in the background of this piece of paper. And again, like I said, save all those little negative pieces. You don't need the actual bikinis, but you do need the negatives. Now this is a new tool for me and I am loving it because when I'm doing videos, I find that the Big Shot machine can be really cumbersome. And by using this new sidekick, which is from Sizzix, I can put this on my desk and it does lock down into place so that way it doesn't shift as I'm running things through the machine. It's perfect for cutting out small dies such as these bikinis, coordinating dies, and more. And I have found this to be so helpful in my craft room. So I'm going to have a more in-depth video about the sidekick coming up soon, but I did want to mention that to you as I was cutting these bikinis out of pattern paper that's included in the kit. I wanted to mention about this die cutting machine and how I find it so helpful for me. So as I mentioned, I'm die cutting these bikinis from some pattern papers. These are pattern papers from Echo Park's Summer Dream collection. I really love the patterns in these papers. They are very bright and colorful, perfect for summer. There's a lot of really fun patterns in here, including polka dots, these really cute watermelons, there's some Ferris wheels and ice cream cones and popsicles and all sorts of things. All of them reminding you of summer, and the colors are just so beautiful. So I'm going to cut out a total of 7 bikinis, and that's going to allow me to use those in the negative areas of this piece of white paper. So now that I have all of my die cutting done, I'm taking a tape runner here and adding adhesive to the back side of this panel. This adhesive, by the way, is ThermoWeb's Memory Tape Runner, and I love this tape runner. I have been a big fan of the Scotch ATG adhesive tape gun, but I have actually loved this little tape runner from ThermoWeb even more. So I'm actually going to be switching to this, and I'll have more details about the ThermoWeb tape runner coming up in another video later on. So after I've gotten that white panel attached down to a piece of white paper, that white paper is just a backing so I can adhere everything down, I'm going to start nesting the bikinis into place in those negative areas where we've already die cut them. And I'm not going to have the bottoms and tops next to each other so that way they match. I'm going to have them kind of randomly placed all over this background. I think it makes it look a lot more fun and a little bit more interesting because you don't have them all in the same spot. You've got different patterns scattered across the entire paper here. This inlay die cutting, you could of course always attach these bikinis straight down onto paper, but I find it actually looks cleaner and much more finished if you inlay them. So by taking the extra step, you get a much more finished look, and there also aren't any dimensional areas. This is a totally flat panel by the time you've inlaid everything into place. You'll notice me taking a rag here and dabbing at the die cut pieces after I've laid them down into the liquid glue. This is because liquid glue can sometimes squirt out underneath of the die cuts, and I find it's helpful to have a dry rag just to allow me to kind of dab at the paper and not have to worry about getting any liquid glue on my fingers, which then would transfer to other parts of my paper. I find that having this little barrier between the paper and my fingers allows me to get a much cleaner application of the die cuts. Now speaking of clean application, I did have a couple of marks on my paper here, just some little black marks from when I went through and die cut these. My cutting plates were a little bit dirty, so I did have to clean that up a little bit, but by using the Tombow Mono sand eraser, I was able to clean off those little marks perfectly, and you would never know they were there. So this is another handy tool to have in your craft room. After I've attached everything down and they've dried, I'm going to trim off the excess around my die cut panel with all of my little bikinis attached to it. The shears that I'm using here are the Holtz Tonic 9.5-inch shears. Now you do notice I have a piece of foam tape attached to this pair of scissors, and I'm not sure why. I must not have realized I had that sticking onto the edge, and here I am cutting with it. I'm just now noticing it. I'm going to have to go clean it off of my scissors. Okay, so messy scissors aside, I'm back to working on the card. So I'm taking an A2 card base, it's just a white card base, and I'm going to add some adhesive along the edges, and I'll attach this down onto some more pattern paper from the card kit. And again, all these papers are from the Echo Park Summer Dream collection. Once I've attached that down, I'm going to bring in my Tonic mini trimmer. This is the 6-inch trimmer, and I'm going to use this to trim off the excess areas around my card base. I really love using my Tonic trimmer for these kinds of little jobs. I find it so helpful. It's a perfect size, it doesn't take up a lot of space, and just really does a nice job cutting. I added some double-sided adhesive to the back side of this panel. I'm going to pop it up off of my card base just to give a little bit of dimension. You could, of course, adhere this straight down. Finally, it's time to add my sentiment. So I'm bringing in a sentiment that's included in the Simon Says Stamp Card Kit stamp set, which is See You Soon. And See You Soon is spelled S-E-A, as in the ocean. So I think it's a cute play on words. I'm taking the sentiment that says, bikinis are like fries. You can't have just one. I think that's really cute. So I'm going to trim it apart because I actually want to stamp it in 2 different colors. So the first part, the part that's in the script, I'm stamping in some soft navy ink. I pulled out that color from some of the colors that are in the bikini there, and I think it matched really nicely and also was a nice dark color for some contrast. I'm trimming this out with my fine tip scissors just to kind of give it a little bit of an outline so it stands off of the card nicely, and that's going to allow me to adhere this down straight onto the card. I also took that second sentiment and I'm going to stamp this down onto some pink cardstock, which is just a leftover strip of pattern paper that I had used for die cutting. I'm adding some white embossing powder from Ranger on top of that sentiment, and then I'll go ahead and heat set that. After I heat set that sentiment, I did take an ink pad. This is some Hollyhock ink, and it matched that pink pattern paper nicely. I'm going to use that to ink the edges, so that way it hides the white core of the paper and also just adds a little bit of extra darkness to the edges of the paper. I think it adds a little bit more interest. I added that strip of paper onto the card with some foam tape, and then the smaller sentiment that's stamped in the blue ink, I adhered that down straight onto the card using some of that tape runner again. So I hope that this card has inspired you to do some inlay die cutting to create these really fun background patterns. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below, or you can head on over to my blog to get more information on this card, including still pictures and products used. Plus, I'll also have links down below to all of the products that I used, as well as to the new card kit from Simon Says Stamp. Thanks so much for watching this video. Here are 2 more you might find interesting. The first one on the top there features the new Simon Says Stamp card kit and everything that's included, so you might want to check that out. And then this other video here is another Simon Says Stamp card kit video that I think you might find interesting. Thanks for watching this video. I will see you again very soon, and have a great day. Bye!